Hi everybody, we're going to do another story today. This one is one that I remember reading to a really special little girl and little boy when they were young. And I'm going to read it again now. And it's been a long time since I looked at this, but you might have heard of it. I've heard it as a song, but as well. But here it is. It's called The Ugly Duckling. There once was an ugly duckling. Was the song. So The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen. It was glorious out in the country. It was summer and the cornfields were yellow and the oats were green. The hay had been put up in stacks in the green meadows and the stork went about on his long red legs and chattered Egyptian, for this language he had learned from his mother. All around the fields and meadows were great forests, and in the midst of these forests lay deep lakes. Yes, it was really glorious out in the country. In the midst of the sunshine, there lay an old manor. That's a big house, surrounded by deep canals. And from the wall down to the water grew great burdocks, so high that little children could stand upright under the loftiest of them. I don't know, have you ever had dandelion and burdock pop? It's one of my favourites, burdocks. They're a plant. It was just as wild there as in the deepest wood. Here sat a duck upon her nest, for she had to hatch her young ones. But she was almost tired out before the little ones came, and then she was so seldom had visitors. The other ducks liked better to swim about in the canals than to run up and sit down under the burdock and gossip with her, so she was a bit lonely. At last, one eggshell after another burst open. Peep, peep, it cried. And in all the eggs were little creatures that stuck out their heads. She said, and they all came rapping out as fast as they could, looking all around them under the green leaves, and the mother let them look as much as they chose, for green is good for the eyes. How wide the world is, said the young ones, for they certainly had much more room now than they did when they were in their eggs. Do you think that this is all the world? Asked the mother. That extends far across the other side of the garden, quite into the parson's fields, but I have never been there yet. I hope you are all together, she continued and stood up. No, I have not all. The largest egg still lies there. How long is that to last? I'm really tired of it. And she sat down again. Oh, because they have to sit on their eggs until they hatch and then you get babies. So she's got lots of little ones, but she's still got a big egg she needs to hatch. Well, how goes it? Asked an old duck who had come to pay a visit. Oh, it lasts a long time with that one egg, said the duck who sat there. It will not burst. Now, only look at the others. They are so the prettiest ducklings one could possibly see. They're all like their father, you know. The bad fellow never comes to see me. Let me see the egg which will not burst, said the old visitor. Well, believe me, it's a turkey's egg. I was once cheated in that way and had much anxiety and trouble with the young ones, for they were afraid of the water. I could not get them to venture in. I quacked and clucked, but it was no use. Let me see the egg. Yes, that's definitely a turkey's egg. Let it lay there and teach the other children to swim. Oh, I think I'll sit on it a little longer, said the duck. I've sat so long now that I can sit a few more days. Just as you please, said the old duck, and she went away. At last the great egg burst. Beep, beep, said the little one, and crept forward. Oh, it was very large and very ugly. Mother Duck looked at it. It's a very large duckling, she said. None of the others look like that. Can it really be a turkey chick, perhaps? Now, we shall soon find it out. I'll go to the water, and even if I have to kick it in myself, let's see if it swims. The next day the weather was splendidly bright, and the The sun shone on all the green burdocks, and the mother duck went down to the water with all the little ones. Splash! She jumped into the water. She said, and one duckling after another plunged in. The water closed over their heads, but they came up in an instant and swam capably. Their legs went of themselves, and there they were all in the water. But the ugly grey duckling swam with them. Oh, no, it's not a turkey, she said. Look how well it can use its legs and how it holds itself. Oh, it is my own child. On the whole, it's quite pretty, if one looks at it rightly. Come with me and I'll lead you out into the great world and present you to the poultry yard. But keep close to me so that no one may tread upon you, and take care of that cat. And so they came to the poultry yard, and there was a terrible riot going on there, for two families were quarrelling about an eel's head, and the cat had got it after all. See, that's how it goes in the world, said the mother duck, and she whetted her beak, for she, too, wanted the eel's head. Only use your legs, she said. See that you can bustle about and bow your head before the old duck yonder. She's the grandest of all here. She's one of them Spanish blood, and that's why she's so fat. And do you see, she has a red rag around her leg. That's something particularly fine, and the greatest distinction a duck can enjoy. It signifies that one does not want to lose her, and that she is to be recognised by man and beast. Shake yourselves, don't turn your toes. A well-brought-up duck turns its toes quite out, just like father and mother so. Now, bend your necks and say, ah! And they did so. But the other ducks around about looked at them and said quite boldly, look there! Now we're to have these hanging on as if there were not enough of us already. And fie, how that duckling yonder looks. Oh, we won't stand him. And one duck flew up immediately and bit it on the neck. Let it alone, said the mother. It does no harm to anyone. Yeah, but it's too large and peculiar, said the duck who'd bitten it, and therefore it must be buffeted. So they're picking on the ugly duckling now. I feel uncomfortable saying ugly duckling. It's not very nice, just different, isn't it? Those are pretty children that mother has over there, said the old duck with the rag around her leg. They're all pretty, but that one, whew, that one's a failure. Oh, I wish she could alter it. It's spoiling the view. That can't be done, my lady, replied the mother duck. It is not pretty, but it has a really good disposition, and it swims really well like any other. I may even say it swims even better. I think it'll grow up pretty and become smaller in time. It's lain too long in the egg, and therefore it's not properly shaped. And then she pinched it in the neck and smoothed its feathers. Moreover, it's a drake. That's a male one, she said, and therefore it's not of so much consequence. I think it'll be just a very strong duck, and will make his way all right. The other ducklings are graceful enough, said the old duck. Make yourself at home, and if you find an eel's head, you can bring it to me. And now they were at home, but the poor duckling, which had crept last out of the egg and looked so ugly, was bitten and pushed and jeered at as much by the ducks as by the chickens. It's too big, they all said, and the turkey cock, who had been born with spurs and therefore thought himself an emperor, blew himself up like a ship full sail and bore straight down on him, and he gobbled and he grew quite red in the face. The poor duckling didn't know what to do or where he should stand. It was quite melancholy because he looked ugly, and he was scoffed at all the time in the whole yard. So he's been bullied, but he's been bullied for being different. So it went on the first day, and afterwards it became worse and worse. The poor duckling was hunted about by everyone and everything. Even its brothers and sisters were quite angry with it and said, if the cat could only catch you, you ugly creature. And the mother would say, if you were only far away. And the ducks bit at it, and the chickens beat it, and the girl who had to feed the poultry kicked it with her foot. Then it ran and flew over the fence, and the little birds in the bushes flew up in fear. That is because I'm so ugly, thought the duckling, and it shut its eyes and it flew on further. Thus it came out into a great moor where the wild ducks lived, and here it lay the whole night long, and it was weary and it was downcast. Towards morning the wild ducks flew up and looked at their new companions. So the ugly duckling's now left everybody else who was picking on it and gone into a field, and he's now with some wild ducks. Let's see if they're going to be nice to him, shall we? What sort of one are you? They asked. The duckling turned in every direction and bowed as well as it could. You are remarkably ugly, said the wild ducks. But that is very indifferent to us, so long as you do not marry into our family. Poor thing. It certainly did not think of marrying, and it only hoped to obtain leave to lie among the reeds and drink some of the swamp water. So it laid for 2 days, and then came 2 wild geese, or properly speaking, 2 wild ganders. It was not long since each had crept out of the egg, and that's why they were so saucy. Listen, comrade, said one of them, you're so ugly that I like you. Ha ha! Will you go with us and become a bird of passage? Near here, in another moor, there are a few sweet, lovely wild geese, all unmarried, and all able to say, you've a chance of making your fortune, ugly as you are. Piff, puff, resounded through the air, and the 2 ganders fell down dead in the swamp, and the water became blood red. It sounded again, and the whole flock of geese rode up from the reeds. Oh my God, what's happening? And then there was another report. There was a great hunt going on. The hunters were lying in wait all around the moor, and some were even sitting in the branches of the trees which were spread far over the reeds. The blue smoke rose up from the clouds among the dark trees and was wafted far away across the water. And the hunting dog came splish splash into the swamp, and the rushes and the reeds went down on every side. That was a fright for the poor duckling. It turned its head and put it under its wing. But at that moment a frightful great dog stood close by the duckling. His tongue hung far out of his mouth. His eyes gleamed horrible and ugly. He thrust out his nose against the duckling, showed his sharp teeth, and splash, splash, on he went without seizing it. Oh, heaven be thanked, sighed the duckling. I'm so ugly that even the dog doesn't like to bite me. And so it lay quite quiet while the shots rattled through the reeds and gun after gun was fired. At last, late in the day, silence was restored, but the poor duckling did not dare to rise up. It waited several hours before it looked round, and then hastened away out of the marsh as fast as it could. It ran over the field and the meadow. There was such a storm raging that it was difficult to get from one place to another. Towards evening the duck came to a small, miserable peasant's hut. The hut was so dilapidated that it did not know on which side it should fall, and that's why it remained standing. So you got a real rickety house. The storm whistled around the duckling in such a way that the poor creature was obliged to sit down and resist it, and the tempest grew worse and worse. A tempest is another word for a storm. Cool word as well. Then the duckling noticed that one of the hinges of the door had given way, and the door hung so slanting that the duckling could slip through the opening in the door, and it did so. Here lived an old woman with her tomcat and hen, and the tomcat, whom she called Sonny, could arch his back and brrr, and he could even give out sparks. But for that one had to stroke his fur the wrong way. Oh, like static shocks. I don't know if you've done it with your hair in a balloon. The hen had quite little short legs, and therefore she was called Chickabiddy Shortshanks. She laid good eggs, and the woman loved her as her own child. Chickabiddy Shortshanks. It's a great name, isn't it? Chickabiddy Shortshanks. In the morning, the strange duckling was at once noticed, and the tomcat began to purr, and the hen cluck, 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 cluck. What is this? Said the woman, and looked all around. but she couldn't see well, and therefore she thought the duckling was a fat duck that had strayed. This is rare. This is a rare prize, she said. Oh, now I can have duck's eggs. I hope it's not a drake. We must try that. So a drake is a boy, a male duck, yeah, not a female, and a male duck doesn't lay eggs. So that's what she's saying. And so the duckling was admitted on a trial for 3 weeks, but no eggs came, obviously, because we know it's a boy. And the tomcat was master of the house, and the hen was the lady, and always said, "We and the world," for they thought they were half the world, and by far the better half. The duckling thought one might have a different opinion, but the hen would not allow it. "Can you lay eggs?" she asked. "No." "Then you'll have the goodness to hold your tongue." And the tomcat said, "Can you curve your back and purr and give out sparks?" "No." "Then you cannot have any opinion of your own when sensible people are speaking." And the duckling sat in the corner and was sad, and the fresh air and the sunshine streamed in, and it was seized with such a strange longing to swim in the water, but it could not help telling the hen of it. "What are you thinking of?" cried the hen. "You have nothing to do. That's why you have these fancies. Purr or lay eggs, and they'll pass over. So just wants to go swimming because it's a duck, isn't it? It's an ugly duck. But it's so charming to swim on the water," said the duckling. "So refreshing to let it close above one's head and to dive down to the bottom." "Yes, that must be a mighty pleasure, truly," quoth the hen. "I fancy you must have gone crazy. Ask the cat about it. He's the cleverest animal I know. Ask him if he likes to swim on the water or to dive down. I won't speak about myself. Ask our mistress, the old woman. No one in the world is cleverer than she is. Do you think that she has any desire to swim and to let the water close over her head?" "You don't understand me," said the duckling. "We don't understand you? Then pray, who is it to understand you? You surely don't pretend to be cleverer than the tomcat and the woman, and I won't say anything of myself. Don't be conceited, child, and be grateful for all the kindness you've received. Did you not get into a warm room? Have you not fallen into company from which you may learn something? But you are a chatterer, and it's not pleasant to associate with you. You may believe me, I speak for your good. I tell you disagreeable things, and by that one may always know one's true friends. Only takes care that you learn to lay eggs or to purr or to give out sparks." So they don't really want him to go swimming. They just say, "Look, you're only any good if you can make sparks, you can lay eggs, or you can purr." "I think I'll go out into the wild world." "The wide world," said the duckling. "Yes, do go," replied the hen. And the duckling went away, and it swam on the water, and it dived, and it was slighted by every creature because of its ugliness. Now came the autumn, and the leaves in the forest turned yellow and brown, and the wind caught them so that they danced about, and up in the air it was very cold. The clouds hung low, heavy with hail and snowflakes, and on the fence stood the raven crying, "Quack, quack, quack," for mere cold. Yes, it was enough to make one feel cold to think of this. The poor little duckling certainly had not had a good time. One evening, the sun was just setting in his beauty. There came a whole flock of great handsome birds out of the bushes. The duckling had never seen anything so beautiful. They were dazzlingly white with long flexible necks, and they were swans. They uttered a very peculiar cry, spread forth their glorious great wings, and flew away from the cold region to warmer lands, swamp and lakes. They mounted so high, and the ugly little duckling felt quite strange as it watched them. It turned round and round in the water like a wheel, stretched out its neck towards them, and muttered such a strange loud cry as frightened itself. Oh, it could not forget those beautiful happy birds, and so soon as it could see them no longer, it dived into the very bottom, and when it came out again, it was quite beside itself. It knew not the name of those birds, and knew not where they were flying, but it loved them because more than it had ever loved anyone. It was not at all envious of them. How could it think of wishing to possess such loveliness as they had? It would have been glad If only the ducks would have enjoyed its company, the poor ugly creature. So he's seen loads of swans, he thinks they're beautiful, and he's still ugly, but he thinks they're beautiful. And the winter grew cold, very cold, and the duckling was forced to swim about in the water to prevent the surface from freezing entirely. But every night the hole in which it swam became smaller and smaller. It froze so hard that the icy covering crackled again, and the duckling was obliged to use its leg continually to prevent the hole from freezing up. At last it became exhausted and lay quite still, and thus froze fast to the ice. Early in the morning a peasant came by, and when he saw what had happened, he took his wooden shoe, broke the ice crust into pieces, and carried the duckling home to his wife. Then it came to itself again, and the children wanted to play with it, and the duckling thought that they would do it an injury. And in its terror, it fluttered up to the milk pan so that milk spurted onto the floor. The woman screamed and clapped her hands, at which the duckling flew down to the butter tub and then into the meal barrel and out again. How it looked then! The woman screamed and struck it with the fire tongs, and the children tumbled over one another in their efforts to catch the duckling, and they laughed and they screamed finally. Happily, the door stood open, and the poor creature was able to slip out between the shrubs into the newly fallen snow, and there it lay, quite exhausted. Everybody it meets are horrible. The children are horrible to it. Everybody's horrible to it. But it would be too melancholy if I were to tell you that the misery and care that the duckling had to endure in the hard winter. It lay out in the swamp among the reeds, and when the sun began to shine again and the larks to sing, it was a beautiful spring. So it spent all the time in the snow on its own. Then all at once the duckling raised its wing. It beat the air more strongly than before, and it bore strongly away. And before it knew what had happened, it found itself in a great garden, where there were apple trees stood in blossom, and where lilac flowers smelt sweet and hung their long green branches down onto the winding canals. Oh, here it was beautiful, such a gladness of spring, and from the thicket came 3 glorious white swans. They rustled their wings and swam lightly on the water. The duckling knew these splendid creatures and felt oppressed by a peculiar sadness. I will fly away to them, to the royal birds, and they will kill me because I am so ugly to dare to approach them. But it is of no consequence. Better to be killed by them than to be pursued by ducks and beaten by fowls and pushed about by a girl who takes care of the poultry in the yard, and to suffer hunger in the winter. And it flew out into the water and swam towards the beautiful swans. These looked at it and came sailing down upon it with outspread wings. Kill me, said the poor creature, and bent its head down upon the water, expecting nothing but death. But what was this that it saw in the clear water? It beheld its own image, and lo, it was no longer a clumsy, dark, grey bird, ugly and hateful to all, but a swan! It matters nothing if one is born in a duckyard, if one has only lain in a swan's egg. It felt quite glad at all the need and misfortune it had suffered. Now it realised its happiness and all its splendour that surrounded it. The great swans swam round it and stroked it with their beaks. I've got goosebumps! How cool is that? All of that misery and all that sadness, thinking that he's ugly, 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 and really, he's a beautiful swan. He was just a grey little swan before. Into the garden came little children who threw bread and corn into the water, and the youngest cried, "Look, there's a new one!" And the children shouted, "Yeah, a new one has arrived!" And they clapped their hands and danced about and ran to their father and mother, and bread and cake was thrown into the water, and they all said, "Oh, the new one is the most beautiful of all, so young and handsome." And the old swans bowed their head before him. Then he felt quite ashamed and hid his head under his wing, for he didn't know what to do. He was so happy and yet not at all proud. He thought how he had been persecuted and despised, and how he heard them saying that he was the most beautiful of all the birds. Now he heard them saying he was the most beautiful of all the birds. Even the elder tree bent its branches straight down to the water before him, and the sun shone warm and mild. Then his wings rustled and lifted his slender neck and cried rejoicingly from the depths of his heart, I never dreamed of so much happiness when I was still the ugly duckling. Oh, isn't that lovely? It's a very old-fashioned way of telling the story of the ugly duckling, but it's the first way, it's how it was written. It's strange because sometimes when you're young and you're at school or when you're younger, you can be not in your prime and you don't turn into something beautiful and wonderful. And some people are pretty when they're little and then uglier when they're older, and some people are not as pretty when they're young and then they turn into the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people. But what you've got to remember is beauty is not just about how you look, it's about how you behave and how you act with other people. And even the prettiest people can be really quite ugly inside. So, anyway, today's shout out is to a beautiful swan, and she is called Natasha. And Natasha, I said at the beginning, I used to read these stories to her. And even as a grown up now and as a beautiful swan, she can still have a shout out. Anyway, see you next time. Bye.